We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. By the time you hear this, I'll be on my way back to Minneapolis and we'll be back to the normal setting. As I told you last night, it was a little tough. I recorded the whole thing. The audio didn't record, so I had to do it all over again. And I have to say, the second run probably wasn't as good as the first, but I did what I could. And I was all right with it because I knew this show would help me redeem myself because this show, the normal scheduled time for Old Soul. And as I told Old Soul, now you can come on and carry me on your back, and we'll do a hell of a show as we always do when you're here. So, Old Soul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, and I never carry you on my back.
Yeah, you may not know it. I've been working out, so I'm not as heavy as I once was.
You know what? I did see that Tim Walz lost he
It,
shedded some pounds there. Have you noticed that?
yeah, all the old dads from Minnesota are trying to get in shape now just to keep up with Tim Walz. We were going to record much earlier than we're recording now. Uh, and of course the convention went longer last night. And I sent a note to uh, Old Soul. I said, you want to wait till after Tim Walz is done? And I knew you did because I knew you and the wild child and your daughter and everybody were watching this. And I knew you were excited about what's going on at the convention because every so often I would get a text from you saying, did you see this? So I knew you were pretty jacked about it. And I wanted to see Tim Walz speak too. So we're coming at this a little later, but you're in Las Vegas. It's midnight here, but it's like 9 o'clock there. So we're good. I'm an
I'm
old
still in
man. I stay up
Arizona.
late anyway.
I'm still in Arizona with the wild child, but I'm going
Oh,
home this weekend though.
yeah, tell us about that. You've been spending a lot of time with this young woman, this young girl that was a client of yours, who's no kin, but apparently is now kin because you're running back and forth to Arizona, taking her with you, doing all kinds of stuff. How's it going with the wild child?
She's doing good. I was telling her, like right now her job is go to school and like enjoy her senior year because
Yeah,
before this, like her home life was just crazy and she was being homeschooled on top of that. So it's just kind of like you can actually like enjoy being a teenager. Um, right now, I told you before we came on, she was taking her friend home because she has her license now. And so I'm like, I'm just sitting here looking at my phone, like, text me when you get back in the house. I need to know that you're okay. But then I made myself busy doing some other stuff, which, okay, so her grandmother, which we call her Grammy, last week and I said her boyfriend Charles. So apparently she's too old to have a boyfriend. And then she was like, you gotta can't let folks think that he's just staying here. So he's not staying here. He has an Airbnb. But if I'm gonna tell it, I'm gonna tell it all.
I got
She's
to
rarely
tell it all.
here when we wake up. So I know she's creeping over there to her friend Charles.
Gotcha.
But she's the Wild Child is in ROTC, so they have their first pep rally this Friday. So I was gonna go home. It didn't make sense to go home and come back, so I just thought that I would just stay here until her pep rally, and then I can go back. She was kind of upset about that because like she hasn't been doing ROTC. Like these kids have been doing it since like the eighth, ninth grade or whatever. So
Right.
she's her first year doing it. So she can only like march with the flag. She can't do like the guns and all of that stuff that they do. So she was a little down about that. But those kids like they're very inclusive. They've been working with her on that. So her little friend that came over tonight was watching the convention, but right before they were like practicing for the rally and stuff on Friday. So I'm looking forward to that.
I think I need to say this, and I think the people who listen know this. You wouldn't speak in favor of yourself, but you have to understand this circumstance with the wild child. The wild child came to you needing reproductive health care because she couldn't get it in her home state. Um,
Unfortunately, yeah.
her dad is nuts and went to jail. Mom has her own issues or a religious zealot or whatever, and this girl was in trouble. And the fact that you named her the wild child would suggest she's not the easiest girl to live with. Now, in a short period of time, what do we got? She's got a new surrogate mom in Old Soul. She's in ROTC. She's finishing her senior year in high school. She's sitting with you watching the Democratic National Convention. She understands politics now and is rooting for the Democratic Party. That girl's come a long way, and you are probably largely responsible for that.
Well, she has firsthand experience of having rights taken away from her, and not having a voice. And then to top it off, her father was, well, not was, he is a sovereign citizen. So they have a completely different belief system. So for her, it's just kind of like new information. She's soaking all of that up. Like she knew it wasn't right what he was saying, but she just didn't have, like the government that we think of it as. So she
Right.
just kind of started soaking all of this stuff up. And then it just pushed it into there when she had her rights taken away. She knows how, voting in the wrong person, even if it's not on the federal level, on the local level, how it could affect you, which for me is sad because when I think about teenagers and stuff, I don't think this is something that should be on their mind.
Right.
They don't have a choice but to think about that.
I will say this, you always describe her dad as a sovereign citizen.
Mhm.
Being a sovereign citizen isn't a thing. He thinks he's a sovereign citizen. He's a
Mhm.
citizen like the rest of us. He thinks he's different. He thinks he doesn't have to comply with certain laws and regulations and
Yeah.
governments. We've seen these people on the internet. He's not a sovereign citizen. There is no fucking such thing as that type of person. He thinks he is, just like MAGA thinks they're fucking patriots, just like Donald Trump thinks somehow he's not a convicted felon. You can think whatever you want, but what's true is true.
Yeah, when I was like talking to her and she's learning about our laws, government, and all of that stuff. At the same time, she was teaching me about the sovereign citizen stuff, just so I can kind of relate to her and see where her mind goes with that.
Yeah.
These people have some strange belief systems. So I guess what they can say is they are not a United States citizen, even though they live here. So they have a right to self-govern. So our laws don't apply to them. They can, when it comes to the whole car thing, they don't believe in insurance and all of that type of stuff. And they believe that as long as they're driving and they don't create an accident, then they shouldn't get tickets and all that. Again, they can just drive however the heck they want to on the road, and they're not immune to our laws because technically they're not a citizen. They're just resigning here. And one of the other things that I learned about them, because she grew up having like her utilities turned off all the time, they believe that our Treasury Department, we all have like $1 billion trust. And so when you get your bills in the mail and you go online and pay them or you mail them, they literally will like take a piece of paper and write like their trust information and send it to utilities company. Like, hey, take it out of my trust account through the Treasury Department at the US government, even though they're not a citizen here. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's the kind of life that she grew up around.
I believe we are free people in this country and we have the right to have whatever beliefs we want.
Yeah.
But when they're contrary to the laws of this government and hurt this government and they're just fucking stupid, well, then I have a problem with your beliefs. You obviously got some miswiring going on in that head. I mean, I've seen these people before. It's like the people I always heard, oh, you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay taxes.
Mhm.
And they give these talks and they send out these tapes and they do all this stuff. But the motherfuckers always end up in jail. They weren't
Yeah.
that smart. They always end up in jail.
Yeah, they have these special license plates. You can actually buy them on Amazon. And so when the police see those license plates, they're supposed to know that this is a sovereign citizen. I guess I would compare it to maybe like a diplomat. When they come here, we can't charge them for crimes and all of that stuff. I guess that's kind of like the mindset that they have. So that's what they use the license plates for. One thing that offends them more than anything is to tell them that they're driving. They never drive, they're only traveling. So unless they are doing like an Uber or Lyft or DoorDash, they are traveling. They are not driving. So even though they're in a car and they're physically driving, do not say driving. They are traveling, period, point blank. Like that's one of those things that just gets under their skin. But
And this guy, her dad, is so
mhm,
strong in his beliefs and he knows he's right
yeah.
that he's currently in jail. So
Mhm.
that tells you the validity of that thought process. Let's go on to something more productive, more positive. I know
Yeah.
you've been watching very closely the Democratic convention. Like I say, from the first day, I get texts from you. Did you hear what they said? Did you see this? Did you see that? And I haven't watched as much of it as you did. I watched it all last night. But this is kind of exciting for you. I've seen you in those days when you're kind of depressed. You always have a smile on your face, but I know when you're kind of emotional or kind of upset about things, you're just jacked up now. You're pretty excited.
Yeah, it reminded me, especially last night when they did the roll call. So remember, I told you when they were out here, and I was telling you we had the DJs, we had the hype men, we had the lights and stuff on. Like it was a party at that rally here in Vegas. And
Right.
so when I was watching the roll call, I was like, oh, that's just like the rally that was here in Vegas. Even the Wild Child, she was like, oh yeah, we just did this. So we were both like turned up watching it. But I mean, that's what their rallies are like. So when people don't understand like why there's so many people at these rallies, yeah, we're listening to them, we're hearing what they're saying, but you're not just going for nothing. They are putting on a show each and every, I don't know how they do this from one state to the next, like day after day after day. Even yesterday, they were both in Milwaukee. And then tonight, Tim is in Chicago. And it's
Right.
just kind of like, it makes you remember like how, I don't know, how little Trump thinks of his supporters for
Right.
the simple fact he will just get up and just strug down to the courtyard of Mar-a-Lago, give some rambling statement, lying to them, doesn't have the decency to go anywhere, to appeal to them, to let them know what he's going to do for them. He's just scaring the crap out of them night after night, telling them how much this country sucks. But here you have Kamala Harris, like this is the DNC. This is her event. And she's just like, yeah, but I got to go over here and talk to these people. I got to reach out to these people. I can't leave them hanging. I have to be there for them. We got work to do. I see y'all on Thursday. You know what I mean? So it
Uh,
was just, it's such a contrast in the respect that they have for people. And I did hear a couple of the guys, because since I've been in Arizona, I've been like phone banking because I can't canvas. And one of the guys told me he doesn't like how they are pandering to the working the working people. I was like, so who are they supposed to pander to? And then I told him not only that, but I was here. And I remember telling you, I was surprised that we were VIP. So all of the volunteers from the field offices, we were the VIP people. It was us and unions. We had like those first like 10, 15 roles. It was union members, culinary, the another like labor union, and all of us volunteers from like the field office. The donors and everybody, they were sitting behind us. It was just like regular people here. And I was just trying to tell him, no, they just kind of put like the working people first.
well, it's
Firsthand experience, I know they're not doing this just for show.
no,
And then even
they aren't.
Tim came to the back and talked to us. I told you about that story. He told us about how he got the edibles bills passed. You know, like he
Yeah.
just came in the back and was like, I appreciate you guys. It's hot as hell out here, and y'all are walking around knocking on doors for us. I really do appreciate that. And that's just who he is. But people think it's phony because he's trying to trick the average worker into voting for him. And
Well,
I don't.
Well, I mean, that would be fine if he hadn't done anything for the average worker and if Kamala hadn't done anything for the average worker, but they've done a lot, both with Tim Walz in the state of Minnesota and Kamala with Joe Biden the last 4 years. They've done a lot for the people. And the idea that they're pandering to these people, I don't think you would call it pandering. I think you may want to look up the definition of that word. But even if it was pandering, it's far better than kicking the shit out of and robbing the middle class, which is what the Republicans do. I'll deal with a little pandering if that's it, if I can avoid getting my ass kicked and robbed.
Yeah. I even saw Kamala Harris like phone banking the other day. And
Hmm.
I was like, I haven't seen, maybe someone has done it, but I haven't seen like, you know, people phone banking. I remember that picture of Ted Cruz phone banking for Trump. But, you know, for her to just be sitting there taking calls, talking to people, asking them how they're doing, you know, just trying to, that lets me know that they are in touch with their roots. Because some of the things I was saying about Michelle and Barack and what they were saying, well, especially what she said about us not having the opportunity to fall upward.
Right,
us,
right.
just the difference between him and us. And then other people were saying, well, how can she say that? Because she's a millionaire. And it's just like, she wasn't born with a golden spoon in her mouth and a $400 million trust fund from her parents. She had to work her way up and earn that. So
Right.
when you look at Republicans who always say, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, do this and do that. And then once you have people of color that do that, then, oh, well, they're the elitists, so they don't have a right to talk, or they're a DEI hire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can have Kamala Harris going from working at McDonald's, putting herself through law school, working up to an AG of like what, the fifth largest state or something crazy like that, then working into the Senate and being vice president, and she's a DEI hire. But you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, and there's no smoke for any of them.
Well,
No.
what you're talking about with Kamala Harris, she was the Attorney General of California, which made her the the leader or the head of the second largest law enforcement agency in the country, being California. Um,
I
so
looked it up, and on average, she had 40,000 active cases. Now,
yeah,
she wasn't working them herself, but she had to delegate that responsibility to the people below her. But
right,
on average, that's her caseload.
yeah.
Me, as like a case manager for insurance, I get like 12 people, and I'm like, wait. But for her, 40,000. And it's just crazy. And they would think she's not qualified.
If my wife sends me out to get things, if I have 3 stops, that's too many. She she'll say, "You want me to text you halfway through?" Yeah, please do, because I'm going to need to be reminded. Since we're talking about the convention and the third night, Wednesday night was last night. We had a lot of great speakers that showed up. I know you
Yeah.
made a mention of Hakeem Jeffries, and you had a particular opinion about Hakeem Jeffries.
He has a way of getting his point across, but also speaking to the culture.
Yeah,
Because when he was saying, get up and do it all over again, that was from a Jay-Z song. But
yeah.
instead of talking about the club and a Waffle House, he's talking about getting out there and voting, looking out for people, doing what you got to do. So I thought that was pretty cool how he put it in there. Um, there's just something special about him. I can't wait to see what happens with him in the future. Like, I can't wait to see that, because there is something there with him. It's kind of like Obama with a little bit more swag.
I
And
always said it
Obama's
was
swag delicious already.
Obama with a stick, maybe, because he's a little more. I don't know. I won't say violent. He's not violent. He's just a little tougher. He's maybe
Yeah.
not as smooth as Obama, but he's definitely got a pattern or a rhythm to the way he talks. I mean, you have to see my hands. It's da 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 da. It's
Mhm.
always like he's comparing the two, but he's not comparing the two. But it's a definite pattern or a rhythm to the way he talks, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of value in that. People can kind of relate to that and kind of be tied to it. The only thing I will say about Hakeem Jeffries, and I always had a lot of good things to say about Hakeem. Do you think he took any flack for when it came to Joe Biden stepping aside? There were people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries to a certain extent, and the only reason Hakeem Jeffries did it is because he's tied so closely to Pelosi. But other
Yeah.
people told him to step aside. The interesting thing is Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have both been asked, "Have you spoken to Joe Biden?" And they both
Yeah.
say no, which is crazy because they've been friends and colleagues literally for decades. Joe's still a little he's feeling betrayed by these people. And I don't blame him.
He
I
should.
mean, it's all worked out for the best, but still, it's a little bit of a betrayal.
I would think it was a huge betrayal.
Yeah.
Like, I look at Nancy Pelosi, I see her legacy, and I appreciate her sass and her shade that she throws.
Right.
Like when she's sitting behind Trump and she ripped the paper up, like, I can appreciate that. But at the same time, she is very corporate.
Yeah.
She does insider trading. That's why I'm pretty sure she's still in Congress now. She hasn't retired, because that's giving up an extra paycheck for her.
Yeah.
But however, she did have the ability to get stuff done. You never saw her embarrass herself on the House floor. She
Yeah.
made sure she had those votes together when she got there, and she ran a tight ship.
Yeah, she did.
She knew what she was looking for when she was choosing a protege, and she chose Jeffries for a reason. However, she's so political savvy. That's not somebody that I would trust. I wouldn't roll with Nancy Pelosi at all. When I seen her on stage tonight, I was rolling my eyes so hard.
Yeah.
The Welsh was like, "Oh, you really don't like her." I was like, "I respect her, but I wouldn't deal with her like that."
Yeah.
I just
She's one of those people, you're glad she's on your team, but you don't particularly like her.
right.
And let's be honest, Nancy Pelosi says Joe should step aside. She's older than Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and she's not quite the person she was 20 years ago either. And the only reason she's running for reelection is because Joe asked her to. So now then because, he wanted to keep it strong and keep somebody in there that knew what was going on. She's older than he is. He asked her to do it, and she's not moving along like she did before. And then she comes out and tells him to step aside. Now, again, it's a tough situation because it worked out well. It
Yeah.
worked out better than we imagined. But there's still the relationship thing. There's a certain amount of um, uh, disin disingenuine behavior by people, and it exposes the worst part of politics. You
Yeah.
have friends, you have colleagues, but sometimes what's best for you is the first and foremost thing you do. And when people do that, I find that frustrating. And Hakeem kind of got caught up in that, not as much as Nancy and Chuck Schumer, but I hope it doesn't stain him too much because he's a great representative. He's a great politician, and he's going to do some great things. But you got to be careful what dog shit you step in when you're that young.
Yeah. There's like three type of people when you're thinking about this environment. Is you have those people that'll stab you in the back, you have those people that'll stab you in the front, and you have those people that'll stab you on the side.
Yeah,
Now, somebody that'll stab you on the side is they don't have no problem with you knowing that they did what they did. They just don't want to look you in the face while they're doing it.
right,
They don't care that you know that they did it. They're not trying to cover it up or hide it. It's just that they don't want to look you in the face when they do it.
right.
And I think that Nancy Pelosi is like one of those side stabbers. I really do think that about her. And Joe Biden knows who I don't think she was trying to hide it. She was behind the scenes making moves. And I don't know, sometimes when I think about it, I know they have like polling and data that we don't have privy to.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if her political instincts and her genius for the political party, if that is what let her know, like, hey, we got to do something about this.
Right.
And just the way she went about it, maybe that is losing some respect. I get conflicted when I come with that because I'm
But
like, inside information that she has access to, I'm
you
pretty
know,
sure that pushed her to do what she did. I don't respect the way she did it.
the thing
You
about
know?
Pelosi and some of the other people too, and I don't know that this is true. I just got this sense by the way people were talking. She wanted to Joe step aside, but I get
Mm-hmm.
the impression she also wanted to step over Kamala and bring somebody else in.
Oh
And
yeah.
that would have been a horrible mistake. It would have pissed off every person of color in this country, and justifiably so. But Joe did the right thing. He endorsed her, and her support took off. And then those people who wanted to maybe push Kamala aside were stuck. They either better get on board or get run over. So it worked out for the best. And that's why I think sometimes, I don't know, I know you're a spiritual person. I get a sense about things, when
Yeah.
things start going a certain way, it could be going bad or it could be going well. I feel like you're on a track, you're on a path, and you're not going to go off that path. It's destiny of sorts. And I think the destiny is that we get to November 5th, they win in possibly a landslide, certainly a decisive amount, and things change dramatically from that point on. We've gone through this shit for 8 years, and it's time for a change. And I just think destiny is waiting for us after November.
Yeah. I think that something that Pelosi has in common with Republicans is if there has to be a Democrat in the White House, make sure he is a corporate Democrat, or maybe a Democrat with a little bit more right leaning in there. I think that her and some of the other corporate Dems, the last thing that they wanted was a middle class president. And then you're going to like twist the knife in a little bit stronger when you bring up a middle class VP, because you already know where these people's fealty is, where their loyalties is, and where their policies are going to go. And I do think she did not want that. I don't think it had anything to do with Kamala Harris herself, like nothing personal. But when it comes to the way she saw the country moving forward, she didn't want somebody who was walking on the picket lines with unions. She's not somebody trying to raise the minimum wage. And they make it very, very well known that they don't want money in politics.
Right.
And
right.
I'm pretty sure that was like one of her biggest issues. You
Well,
gotta take money in politics, or we're not going to be able to have interest accounts, or we're not going to be able to have certain stocks or this or that. Like a lot of those people have those things. And like a perfect example of it was COVID. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, wait. Before you start sending people to work from home, let us all go and invest our stock options into desks and chairs and this and that.
Right.
So yeah, people are suffering and they're dying, but you need to put that off a couple of days so that we can get our stock options going on, because we already know people are going to be working from home and these are the things that they're going to need. So we can profit off that. And so I do think that she doesn't want somebody in there who is going to put working class people first. Nothing personal, it's just that she feels like that's where she wants to see the country go. Like we need to stay in our place, I guess, is where it's at.
I think that was a problem too with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden has always been a centrist Democrat, which could be helpful to the corporate people. But Joe was in a position he's got nothing to lose. And he's not going to have to run again. He has nothing to lose, no leverage against Joe. And he's talking about raising taxes on rich people, giving tax cuts to middle class, getting better health care, doing all these things. And I think to some corporate Democrats, they looked at that, as well as him being old and slow. That was just their excuse. They didn't like the fact that Joe could go in there and start working with the middle class and against the wealthy people, and there was no leverage. Nothing they could say, well, if you do this, we're not going to elect you next time. Joe would say, fuck that. I'm not going to do it next time. So I think the money thing, and I think the fact that he was old and slow was just kind of a lucky break for them to use that against him. But in the end, what happens? Joe steps aside. He fools them all. He endorses Kamala. Kamala's a middle-class woman who working from the bottom up and the middle out, just like Joe Biden. And then they bring in a middle-class guy who, I swear to God, I think I got more money than Tim Walz. And he's all about helping people too. So as much as they tried to game this situation, they would have been better off with Joe Biden if it was about not giving the middle class help, because I think it's going to be even bigger with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because they're younger, they're not the old school people, and they're actually going to do the things they say. So fuck the rich people. They screwed up again.
Yeah, Kamala and Tim are hurting their bottom lines. And like, not yet, but they already know that that's coming.
Yeah.
In addition to that, especially someone like Nancy Pelosi, who can actually look ahead and plan for the future, she knows that once you get someone in there who is going to do things for the American people, and not just do stuff for her, because I know some of the stuff that Joe Biden did, it's going to take a year or two for us to start to feel it, such as like the infrastructure bill. Some of we feel right away with prescriptions, but when he put the infrastructure plan out, you had to see where the money was going to go, what state, what projects were going to be in place before people started breaking ground and actually started working and the economy seeing the benefit of that. They know that once you put policies in place and the middle class starts to feel that right away, they're not going to be looking at trust funds for the White House anymore. No. It really is going to be, well, we need middle class leaders because they know where we're coming from and then they know what to do. I was seeing like Kamala Harris was talking about when you have your baby, she was talking about wipes, strollers, baby formula, like normal stuff that women have to think about when they have a child. You don't hear Republicans talking about that. You don't hear them talking about that at all. So it's just like they talk our language because they know where we're at. And it doesn't, you know, and I think about what they say about Michelle, you can still make something of yourself and you can
Right.
still have things, but you don't necessarily have to forget where you came from.
Right.
And so, yes, she has money, and yes, she can speak for the middle class because you can still tell that she still has her roots in her
Yeah.
middle class backgrounds. It's
Right.
like, yeah, I grew up, and you won't catch me living in the hood. That's just not going to happen. But every time I volunteer, that's where I go to.
Right.
When I want to feel like comfort, that's where I go to. When I take my nephew to get his haircut, that's where I go to. My honey's daughters, when they need their hair done, okay, we're going to the salon in the hood. Like I always go back to that because that's where I'm from. I don't have to live there. I don't have to struggle to prove that I'm from the hood, but I do need to stay in touch with where I'm from so I don't get lost in the shenanigans of all the other crap that's going on.
Right. I would just say this about Nancy Pelosi. She's 86 years old. Realistically, when she's looking at the future, we're talking the weekend, maybe Wednesday of next week. You don't know what's going to happen when you're that fucking old. And in terms
Yeah.
of Michelle Obama being wealthy now, if she was still a poor little girl living in the hood, she wouldn't get a chance to do what she's doing now. She did
Mhm.
pull herself up by the bootstraps and made her money, unlike Donald Trump, who had it handed to him, and then he wasted it and ran that business into the ground. There's a vast difference between people that are successful in the Democratic Party and Donald Trump. I have to ask you though, now that you've seen our boy Tim Walz from Minnesota, governor of Minnesota, speak last night in the convention, what are your thoughts on Tim Walz?
Okay, when I met him in person, I had an impression of him that was better than the one that I already had, especially hearing about how he tricked them. Because it's like you want somebody that'll fight for you, and that's the person that will do that. So
Right.
it's like he's not fighting against us, he's fighting for us. So I was already impressed. He meets us, he's telling us his stories. I'm already impressed. I saw a couple of events where people couldn't get in, and he went outside to tell them, thank you for standing out here. I do appreciate you being here, even though you're not getting in, just acknowledging them. But what made me like, I was like crying when I was listening to him speak because they kept showing his children. And his son like stood up and was like clapping. It was like, that's my dad. That's my dad. And it's just like, when you look at his children and you see them like in tears and happy and just like so proud of their father, it's like nothing else needs to be said.
Yeah.
Nothing else needs to be said. Like just seeing his son so like emotional and amped up for his dad, like that took me out. I started crying. It was like, oh my God.
I,
You can just
it,
tell about who he is. Just look at how his family looks up to him. That's enough right there.
I read a story somebody wrote in Facebook one time, and they were out walking their dog in a dog park or just a regular park, and this dog wasn't on a leash and it got ahead of them. So it turned
Yeah.
a corner. Um, uh, the dog turned a corner and now they were trying to rush him because it's out of their sight. So they got to see, they turned the corner and there's their dog and this older guy hugging them and patting them and stuff. And they go, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry." And then Tim Walz looks up and here's the governor of the state they live in playing
Mm-hmm.
with their dog. You know,
Yeah.
the thing is a lot of people think when you see politicians, and justifiably so, that what you see from them is just put on, it's just show. But Tim Walz is literally exactly what you saw in the convention uh, last night and in all the viral videos and all that sort of stuff. He's genuinely like that. You can't find anybody that says a bad word about him. That's a vast difference between J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. I'll tell you that right fucking now.
That's true. Even like with Tim Walz, if you look at his students that they interview, and like they have been like digging through his record, and like every single student that he has, it's
Yeah.
like he was a great teacher. Like, we loved him. He did this, he did that. And even like the guy that was telling the story about him teaching, like, I guess like Little League, he's a high school basketball teacher or uh,
Football.
football teacher or coach, and he's over here teaching, junior high school stuff so that other kids could get free lunch. Like, he's working off their debt so that they can get free lunch.
Yeah,
And it's just kind of like, that's the type of person that you would want on your side.
yeah, the story was that they told last night was that he was a football coach, and then he
Mm-hmm.
ended up being a track and a basketball coach or something for seventh grade.
Yeah.
And he found out a kid at his high school owed a lot of money for lunches and was never going to be able to pay it back and couldn't have lunch and all that other stuff. So he decided he wanted to pay that off, but he's a teacher. He wasn't making a lot of money. So he and his
Mm-hmm.
wife checked the district and said, is there any little jobs I can do to make extra money to help this kid pay off his debt for his lunches? And what he found was coaching seventh grade track and basketball and that stuff. He took the time out of his day to do it. He made the money in those extra jobs and he used that money to pay that kid's bill off. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. When I hear about Tim Walz and the things I hear that he's done, I almost think you and he would be soulmates, doing stuff for other people. I mean, I know he's a married guy, but you guys have a lot in common as far as going out of your way to help folks.
But I see like him and I hear his stories. Like, I was just like, man, I kind of need to step my game up a little bit. And the wild child, she's like, are you kidding me? Like, you literally give like sandwiches and chips to like the
Right.
mailman, the Amazon delivery drivers and stuff, which is like in some states they have it, but other states they don't. Like, they have water stations. From my understanding, it would be like a 7-Eleven. You could take like, your canister in there and you could get free water out the fountain and stuff like that. But not every state has that. And it's pretty sad that employers don't provide that, especially here in Arizona and in Vegas. It's
Yeah.
hot as heck. And they're out there delivering packages, running up and down stairs, doing this, doing that. And I'm like, hey, if y'all ever need some water, I got sandwiches in here. I go get up in the morning, make their little lunches and stuff. But it's just kind of like you have to look out for each other. I couldn't do that job. I really couldn't do it. It's just too hard. So it's like, I'm not going to do it, but, I hope you get through your day.
Well, the idea that you think you might have to ramp up your game, I don't even know how you do that. How do you have fucking time? Every time I talk to you, you're in another state, in some kind of protest or trying to get people to register for the vote or going to a jail or whatever. I mean, I think you're doing fine, old soul. I think you're doing far more than most people do, and you should be proud of that fact and not worry about trying to ramp up your game because I don't think you have the fucking time, especially since you're parenting the wild child now. You got another kid.
That makes me feel good. It really does, because I've done some stuff to make like my grandmother do backflips in her grave. But I always say like, okay, now she's like resting. She know I'm good. I'm doing what she would want me to do.
Right.
But I do think we all have to do our part there.
Well, and,
We
and
still
that's and that's one of the things Kamala and Tim are saying. That's one of the things they say over and over again. You got to help your neighbor, regardless of who they are, what they pray to, or who they love, or what color their skin is. If you're neighbors and we're all neighbors, you got to help one another out. And that's such a that's such a wonderful thing to hear because we haven't heard that kind of message in literally decades. I'm 64 years old. I can't think of a time when people actually came out and said that and then actually did it. It's heartwarming and as as I've said, when you watch this convention, it's hard not to tear up because it's
yeah.
so positive and it's so inclusive and it's so about helping other people. And we just have not seen that for a long fucking time from either party.
No, think about it as like the audacity,
Yeah,
seriously, the audacity of the Republican Party. I want you to live your life the way that I think that you should do it. And
right.
if you choose not to do that, I'm going to force it on you. But I'm going to add insult to injury because I'm not living my life like that. I just
Right.
want you to live your life like that. Just the thing about the audacity of them saying that, you know what I mean? To say to women, you can't have birth control because you're only supposed to have babies. That's what you're there for. But
Right.
yet you have their wives in Congress. You have them women themselves in Congress, and they only have like one or two children. So it's like clearly you're on birth control because you're just gonna start. You're gonna have two children, and then God is gonna say, well, "That's it, no more kids for you." No, clearly you're taking birth control because you don't want to have any more children, because you want to be in Congress, because you want to move up the corporate ladder, or whatever it is that you want to do. So it's just kind of like them not seeing us as, I don't even want to say equals, them not seeing us as like free people to think for ourselves and make our own decisions. They feel that they have the right to do that.
They
And
they
it's,
they feel like they're the elites and we're the serfs and what we do their bidding. And you talk about audacity. Here's the other audacious thing is that the Republicans are supposed to be the party of a smaller government, a government that leaves its people alone. And they continue to say that in spite of the fact with Roe v. Wade and all these other things, they want to infiltrate your life and control your life. They
yeah,
can't tell the truth. They tell you a lie, they do the opposite, and then you're supposed to believe what they've said. The
mhm,
Republican Party is a party of lies every time they open their mouth, whether it be Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Mitch McConnell, whoever, they're always lying. It's all about trying to hoodwink or gaslight people. And there are some people who haven't caught on to it yet. Fortunately, there's not a lot of them, and they're just the stupidest among us. But they continue to do this, and it's continuing to not work anymore. It did for decades, but it's not working anymore.
yeah, it's lies, it's deception, it's cruelty, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the deception part because today, well, it'll be yesterday by the time this plays, but Florida, like they will make it seem like to their base, because we already know what's up. They didn't gave the game up a long time ago. But the deception with their base, and I think that maybe they just know, they don't think they know these people don't have common sense. They know these people can't think for themselves. They know if they can say, do your own research, that means going on Facebook and finding somebody to affirm your opinion instead of looking for the truth. They know that, but they give them the deception that they're making choices. So in Florida, they have that referendum for abortion on the ballot in November, right?
right.
Ron DeSantis and the courts out there just backed him up. So it's just supposed to be simple. Abortion, yes, abortion, no. That's it, that's all. But he was able to put, I don't even know how to say it. It's like a disclaimer or something next to the question.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, I guess you would say propaganda. And what he's going to put there is, do you want abortion to be legal or illegal? And if it's legal, like you just need to know that taxpayer money is going to go towards paying for abortions. So that's what it's going to say next to the referendum in November.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, that's not going to fly. Because we need to educate those people out there and let them know that this is a lie and that's not true. But I do think that most women know that. We just need to make sure that they know that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of someone being able to put propaganda on a ballot. I've never thought that that would be something that he would be able to do.
It
Maybe
doesn't
he was
sound it
trying
doesn't
to do
sound
it, but
legal.
how did he get an approval from the courts to do that?
Yeah,
I'm
it
still
does.
shocked by that. I'm still shocked.
It doesn't sound legal, and it probably will be stopped. They're just flailing for their last gasp. I mean, Florida is really in a situation where they could very well turn blue. Everything is working against Ron DeSantis and the Republicans in that state. People are starting to organize for Kamala Harris. I don't know for sure if Florida's going to flip to blue, but it's a possibility. And up till recently, it was never even close to a possibility. So
Yeah.
some ground has been gained, and that's good to see.
I
I,
can't
I
think of her name, but before I forget, the young poet that they had on
Yeah,
tonight, the Black girl,
Amanda.
her books are banned in Florida now. So before I forgot, I just had to throw that out there. My nephew, my brother, who's in the military, he has two children and they grew up in Germany and England, like they were toggling back and forth. But he actually came to the States and he was playing football in Florida for a year. And then he just transferred out because the classes that he needed, they don't offer those anymore.
Yeah.
And my niece, she wants to be a pediatrician. And so she was just kind of like, yeah, I can't, because they have like family in Florida. And they were like, well, we're going to maybe have to like find something else for her because her brother just left. And then the courses that she wants to take as like an OBGYN and a pediatrician, she can't get that kind of education in Florida.
Yeah, that's
What if you
ridiculous.
have a female who is in trouble? Like you have to learn how to deal with that. But in Florida, certain words are not even allowed in textbooks anymore.
Right.
And so my brother was just like, yeah, well, I'm happy to have y'all in the States, but y'all not going to school in Florida.
Yeah.
That's just like, so yeah, but they banned the poets' books. And Oprah, she spoke tonight too. They banned her books as well. Just thought
Yeah.
I'd throw that out there. I
It's
don't know what you can find in an Oprah book or a young woman's poetry book that's worth banning, other than the fact that they are Black, but they
yeah.
banned it. I don't know what kind of education those kids is getting out there. Their liberal arts is gone. It's insane out there. It's crazy. That's why I'm thinking that it could turn blue, just for the economy is going to be decimated when you have children unwilling to go to universities out there.
Right.
When you have companies unwilling to have offices out there.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly in Florida, and hopefully it does turn blue. I tell you what, Old Soul, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
I'll be here.
All right, we are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, and Old Soul is our guest, as she often is on Thursdays. And we've been talking about the convention and Tim Walz last night, and how emotional, inspirational, and motivational this whole convention has been. It's been a joy to watch, and it's good seeing that things are in the going in the positive direction. The one thing that I found interesting, and I think people have to understand, is when you see these people talking in this convention, Donald Trump's name comes up a lot. And some people will say, "Well, why do you even say his name? Why don't give him the decency of mentioning his name?" But the thing about it is something we've learned over past elections since 2016. When the election is about Donald Trump, he always loses. So I think they're very specifically trying to paste his face on this election, saying that you're either voting for or against Donald Trump, then it's not a difficult choice. They are going to continue to try to pin this on Donald Trump, everything on Donald Trump, because it's a winning strategy.
Yeah, not just the strategy, but I do think it's our responsibility because clearly the Republican Party isn't going to hold him accountable. But it's our responsibility to remind people of what it was like having him in the office,
Yeah.
the stress, the trauma. Like we are still grieving and dealing with that. We haven't had a chance to, like, okay, whew, that's in our history. We can move on from this. We haven't had an opportunity to do it because he's still been there, because MAGA has still been there, creating all this chaos and this drama. So it's our responsibility to remind people, because some people, they just check out, and I don't blame them. And you see people do that in their regular lives, like they're in a bad relationship and they just like, they just check out because it's too stressful for them. And I think this is pretty much the same thing. I think a lot of people checked out. A lot of people don't pay attention to politics anyway.
Right.
But it's our responsibility to remind them of who he is and what he stands for. And it damn sure ain't for us.
I got to tell you, Donald Trump's been kind of a disappointment for me this week, in a good way, a disappointment in a good way. Because I knew when the convention is going on, as a narcissist, he can't stand when the intention isn't on him, whether it be negative or positive. And I was assuming he'd do some crazy shit this week in order to draw attention away. Now he is doing campaign rallies, But from what
Yeah.
I've seen, they're not very well attended. He's kind of low energy. It's all kind of stale, the same shit. He wants to pull attention away, but he's just not capable of doing something that will get the attention. So he's got to be a little frustrated at this point that his normal strategies are not working.
Okay. I was, this is not appropriate for me to say this. Okay,
Uh,
so when I looked at his rallies, my daughter and I are on two different levels when we talk about this. I'll tell you my level first because it's bad, and then I can follow it up with a smart or intelligent observation from her. I look at it as this kind of like when Trump is out there and he is so low energy and he's so like down and depressed. For me, it's kind of like bad sex. Like, let's just go ahead and get this over with. Like, I ain't in the mood
yeah,
for this, but let's just go and get it over with. Like, that's
yeah.
how I
That,
look at it. Like,
I,
those
I I
kind
could see
of
that. I
on
could see
you,
that.
just get it over with. Right? When he's out there, that's what first thing that I think about when I see it.
Well,
My daughter,
you need to explain it to a lowbrow guy like me for me to understand this. Now I'm going to be confused by what your daughter said, but go ahead.
so what she thinks is he's getting so much pressure behind the scenes to these are your talking points. You need to stick to it. Don't veer away from this. And so he's intentionally being low energy. So those people who put in pressure on him will say, you know what, like him going off script wasn't working, but it's making him stick to a script. That's not working either. So let's try something else. So it's almost kind of like he made a deal with them, like, okay, I'll try to do it your way. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm gonna go back to my way. But when he tries to do it their way, he puts absolutely no effort into it at all.
Yeah.
That way he can go back to doing it the way that he wants to do it. He just kind of wants to show them that their way and their suggestion, that's not gonna work either.
The proof is in the pudding too, because prior to Barack Obama and Michelle Obama giving their presentation the other day at the convention, somebody talked to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump obviously was taking some direction because he said, I like Barack Obama. I have respect for Barack Obama. He's a good guy, which is ironic when you went through the whole birther thing and all the names and all the bullshit that you said about him. I don't necessarily believe you, Donald. And then Michelle and Barack come out, give their presentations, and go after his shit. And
Yeah.
then he comes back yesterday and says, do I still have to be nice? Do I still have to be positive? I can't respond to those kinds of attacks. So
Yeah.
this is his argument always, because people are going to be attacking him because he's a fucking criminal. So it's and I think the Democrats know this. His people don't want him attacking them, but if they're attacking him, he can't help himself. And that continues to send him down this fucking rabbit hole he'll never be able to get out of. He is trying to take direction, but he just can't stick to it. Like you say, he'll start out very low energy. It's like, oh, if I have to fucking do it, I'll just say the words and hopefully that's good enough for you. But when he doesn't
Mhm.
get the response from the audience, because he needs the adulation, he needs the clapping and the cheering, he goes back to his old standard. Unfortunately, it's the same shit he's been saying for 4 years. So even the dumbest motherfuckers are getting tired of it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were saying like Barack and Michelle were like attacking Trump or whatever. I think that they understand, or at least they've educated themselves in the psychology behind Trump. He's
Absolutely.
a narcissist and he's created this alternate reality for himself. And the people around him are enablers. They're complicit in this. They tell him he's the greatest. They tell him that this poll is the only poll to look at because, like, they make that reality that he wants to live in. They actually enable that. Only thing that they're doing at the DNC right now is they are like showing him what the truth is. They are calling him out on his crap, but it's not lies. They're not making any of this stuff up. It's the actual truth.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to deal with the truth. He wants to live in that alternate reality when everybody thinks he's great. He's the best thing ever. He's the best president ever. When he walks into the dining room at Mar-a-Lago and everybody is standing up and clapping like he's some kind of royalty, that's the reality that he wants to live in. But when you have people that's bringing him down to earth, he starts lashing out because he want to go back to Earth too. He don't want to be here with us.
What you have to understand about narcissists, and I learned this with my father, they are the easiest people to manipulate on
Yeah.
both sides of the coin. Like you said, all you have to do is pat him on the backside, say he's brilliant, say he's a genius, and he'll think you're the greatest person and do whatever you want. But on the
Mhm.
other side of the coin, it isn't hard to get him triggered. All you have to do is say, you're weak, you're stupid, you're not doing this right, or you're wrong. And then you can manipulate that person to be his worst self, which is what the Democrats are doing. They're smart enough to understand that we need this fucker to keep acting crazy, and it doesn't take much to do it. Just take Barack Obama or Michelle Obama or some guy on a podcast to say some shit. You notice that he's doing some podcasts too. He did a podcast with Theo Vaughn. He's trying to get to the young people, you know.
That ain't
Uh,
gonna work.
it ain't
We-
working. It ain't working. It's a joke when he does.
yeah. The easiest way to get to Donald Trump is to tell him the truth about himself. That's the like most adults, they can take the truth about somebody can point something out to you. And then you could be like, oh yeah, I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize I was saying that. Or you know what, yeah, I could work on that. Not
Right.
Donald Trump. He takes it as if you kicked him in the forehead. They haven't said anything wrong. The only thing that they've done is told him the truth about himself, and he cannot handle it. However, he wants to be able to call us rapers, baby killers,
Right.
pedophile, groomers. He wants to say that we're into transgenderism, whatever the heck that means. He's
Yeah.
supposed to be able to say and do whatever he wants to us. And the Republican Party thinks that's okay as well. And then the moment we say something back, then there's all this pearl clutching and all this, oh my gosh, fake outrage. And the thing about it is, we trained the Republican Party how to treat us. We've trained them like, okay, we're going to take the high road. We're not going to address that issue. It's just a lie, whatever. And so they got used to treating us that way.
Right.
But now it's like a whole new breed of Democrats over here that's like, nah, we're not supposed to just sit back and take y'all crap. And they don't know how to handle it. It's not just Trump. It's like as a collective, they have
Absolutely.
absolutely no idea how to handle that.
Well, it's
And
a
they babysitting him. I don't know if you've seen it. I'll have to send you the link to the DNC's fact checks. Oh, that'll get you going. That right there, I guarantee you'll make a podcast
yeah.
off of it. Their
Well,
fact checks are, oh my gosh, there was one that I was reading when Joe Biden, because that's the one they fact checked the most, where he said that Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides at Charlottesville.
yeah.
The fact check said he walked that back. So the fact check wasn't that he didn't say it. The fact check was he walked that back. Some of the fact checks was like, well, what he meant to say was this, or it was interpreted that way. Those are the fact checks. So it just lets us know that it's not just the Republican Party, it's the media that's complicit in this alternate reality that he wants to live in,
I'll
and
put
that they
it,
don't make him accountable for it.
I'll put it to
Is
you this way. For 8 years, he said crazy shit. And
yeah.
every time he says crazy shit, some Republican says, well, he was joking, or he meant this, or he meant that. Here's the deal. I like presidents that say what they mean and mean what they say and don't
Mhm.
joke around about important shit. We shouldn't have to explain what the president of the United States or the former president really meant. He should be capable of telling us exactly what he meant and understand when it's inappropriate or embarrassing to say certain things. Everything, I said this on another podcast, a lot of the stuff he says, I don't think is even serious because he's got kind of a shtick, you know? He's trying to
Yeah.
be funny, he's trying to be clever, and he says stuff for reactions. But where he's failing is people are taking it as serious. And then because he's a narcissist, he can't deny it. Now he's got to double down on it and actually be truthful that he really meant it. It's a horrible mess for him because he keeps doing it to himself. He's trying to get the audience. You know, I understand this too, because I've spoken in front of audiences before. And if you can make them laugh a little bit, You can suck them into being on your side, but you got to know how to do it. You got to actually be funny, and you can't say crazy shit. Donald Trump does not realize that.
Yeah, I think but it's twofold with that. The first one is it's just gaslighting from the Republicans.
Yeah.
He didn't really mean to say that. They're just cleaning up what he says because they'll say that, oh, he didn't mean to say that. He meant to say this. But then they'll turn around the very next day and say, oh, well, Donald Trump, he tells it like it is. He says exactly what it is that he wants to say, whether you like it or not.
But he didn't
So,
mean that.
yeah, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, which one is it? It's gaslighting. The second thing about that is I'm all cool for a president having a sense of humor. Joe Biden laughs at himself all the time. And he always tells that grandpa joke, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm old as dirt, or, I was the youngest one in Congress. Now I'm the oldest one. Like, he can laugh at himself.
Right.
What I don't want to do is see a president telling jokes, quote unquote, when you are giving a press conference in the middle of a pandemic, when Americans 3,000 of them are dying every single day. I don't want to hear you talking about injecting yourself with bleach. And then when people call you out on it, oh, it was just a joke. First of all, it wasn't a joke. Second of all, if it was a joke, why is that appropriate in the middle of a pandemic press conference when you know 3,000 people are going to lose their lives today? Why is this an appropriate time to tell a joke? And that's the thing, is like, people don't ask them those questions. They don't push back on that. And that's what allows for him and the Republicans to be just so lackadaisy about their crap, because the media isn't going to hold them accountable.
You can't say, well, slavery was a nice work training program for black people. It really helped them out. You can't say that shit, even if
Yeah,
it's a joke. It's
right.
appalling. And
Yeah.
apparently they don't have the wherewithal to understand what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. I wanted to bring something else up because I made a prediction. I don't make really predictions. I just kind of analyze stuff and try to see how it's all going to work out. But this prediction actually turned out, it looks like, everybody was really upset about Robert F. Kennedy coming into the race. Oh no, he's going to take votes away from Joe Biden. He's a Democrat. He's a Kennedy. And I said at the time, I said, don't worry about that so much because he's an anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist, and he's a crazy fuck. It's going to be Republicans that vote for him. And I
Yeah.
said, beyond that, I don't even think that Robert F. Kennedy will garner enough support to be even beyond the ballot in November. And what we heard yesterday is he's planning to drop from the campaign, the race, on Friday, and he's talking about endorsing Donald Trump, which is ironic. A Democrat, a Kennedy, endorsing Donald Trump, a fucking criminal. But he's talking about the prospect of endorsing Donald Trump. Now, I heard the story that he went to Donald Trump before to try to work a deal, and they didn't cut him any deal. Then he went to the Democrats, tried to cut a deal, and they didn't even talk to him. And now Donald Trump wants to talk to him. And I think there'll be some people who are afraid of what's going to happen. They're looking at
Oh,
how close the race is, and they're looking at Robert F. Kennedy getting 2 or 3%. That's a pretty decent chunk when you have a close race with the two bigger parties. So I'm sure Donald Trump thinks, well, I'll take Robert F. Kennedy on with me. He'll endorse me. I'll get all his votes, and that will tighten up the race. But that's not what's going to happen.
mm-mm.
Like Nikki Haley, people are supporting Robert F. Kennedy, not because they like Robert F. Kennedy or they like Nikki Haley. They just don't want to vote for Donald Trump. And there's been some polls that said if you took Robert F. Kennedy out of the race, it would still pretty much be the same in terms of the polls. Somebody even said that like 70% of the people, if Robert F. Kennedy is out, would vote for Kamala, and 30% would vote for Donald Trump. So if anybody's worried about Robert F. Kennedy pulling out and Donald Trump picking up 3%, not going to happen.
I do not like to sound like there's a superiority complex over here, but Democrats are above Robert F. Kennedy. I think
Yeah.
when he first came on the scene, people who were not familiar with his anti-science rhetoric was like, "Ooh, Kennedy." And then as soon as he opened his mouth and he started talking, we knew he wasn't one of us. You know what I mean? Like, he's not like us, basically.
No,
The only
he's not
people
at all.
that's feeling Robert F. Kennedy is conspiracy theories, anti-vaxxers, anti-science. All of those people are MAGA. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know what made them think a conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer is somebody who is appealing to progressive millennials and Democrats. I don't know what made them think that.
I don't
Nobody,
either.
only people that like him is people who drive around with dead bears in their Jeeps just for the
Yeah.
heck of it. You know what I mean? Like those are the only people that's feeling him like that. He was basically, they tried to use him to cipher votes off from Biden. And the crazy part about it is he couldn't even cipher votes for Biden. So
Yeah.
what in the world makes you think he gonna get votes for Kamala? That is so crazy to me. I always call him Mr. Polio because I'm like, he is cool with bringing back polio, measles, mumps,
Yeah.
all of that crap. And it pisses me off when I think about somebody like Joe Rogan, who is so irresponsible with his platform.
Yeah.
Because when you put up somebody like RFK, you need to do your homework. And it is not even that much digging that you need to do, that book was not peer reviewed. And when it was peer reviewed, they came back and said, y'all, this is a lie. We don't know if he like had a dream where he was in Alice in Wonderland and he woke up and he just wrote some crap down or what happened. But that's not peer reviewed. That's not science. It's not true. You're not going to take your child and get them a chickenpox vaccine and then all of a sudden they wake up and they have autism. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So the fact that he promotes that to me is just, I hate when people are irresponsible with their platform. And this is ridiculous that he would do that.
Well,
But
Joe Rogan, um, granted, he's got a big audience. He's making big money from Spotify. We're on the same platform. I'm on Spotify too, the audio version of this. But Joe Rogan said one time when he was getting some pushback from something stupid he said, look,
mhm,
man, I'm just a dumbass doing a podcast. And I'd like to support that opinion because he is just a dumbass. Because what when you're looking at somebody like Joe Rogan or somebody who's got a big platform like this, they're in a situation where they've got to make money. They've got to get viewers. They've got to get followers. So they'll say and
mhm.
do whatever they think will work to get them to do that. And it's impossible to get good information from somebody who is that disingenuous that they will do whatever it is to make money. This is what we're seeing from the mainstream media, the news outlets. It's about money. It's about the bottom line. I mean, a lot of people like what we're doing here or other people in TikTok or podcast. A lot of these people are doing it not for views, not for followers, but just to get the truth out there. And
Right.
we'll never get rich and really famous off that. But who gives a fuck? I'm 64. My granddaughter knows who I am. She thinks I'm cool. I'm set.
Yeah.
But
I can understand Joe Rogan's mindset if he wasn't as old as he is. Because
yeah,
I do
true.
know like from there was a certain time like when I was growing up is do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
But we know better than that. And even though Joe Rogan can sit on his podcast and say, hey, don't listen to me, I'm just some dumb jock, you still have an audience that who are listening to you and who are taking you seriously. And you have to be responsible to those people, especially when you're giving information like you shouldn't get vaccinated or you shouldn't get your child vaccinated because they could be autistic, which is dumb in and of itself. But when you have a child out here that does catch measles or chickenpox or something that can cause them to be severely sick or polio, handicapped for the rest of their life, you have to be responsible. And he
Well,
doesn't feel that responsibility. I'd like, I didn't ask for the wild child, but she's a part of my life now. So
yeah.
I can tell her, hey, you need to stop smoking cigarettes. And I'm sitting over here chain smoking. I can't do that. I kind of
No.
have to lead by example because I know she's watching. I knew my daughter was watching. I know my little nieces are watching. And it's like, I don't want to be under a microscope. However, I'm an adult and I have to be responsible
Right.
for those who are watching me. And
Well,
I don't even have 10 people following me, let alone 10 million.
well, you have
I
more than that from this show, but you
at
make
least
a
they
you make you
respect
make a
check this
good point. You make
podcast.
a good point in our life. in our personal lives, we have to be responsible for who we are and what we do. But
Hmm.
when you're doing a TikTok and you have 10 followers or 10 million followers, or if you're doing a podcast and you've got 10 people listening or 10 million people listening, one thing I learned about being in radio, and I learned it very quickly when I was doing traffic, just a stupid job, you know. Uh, but there were people that listened every day. There might have been a lot of them, there might not have been a lot of them, but the people who were listening counted on me to be there and to do it. And
Yeah,
because because I was a traffic guy, I couldn't say, "Hey, I was late because I got stuck in traffic." You know, you got to be there. You got to plan ahead. And like when I did the podcast yesterday and it didn't work, and I'm thinking, "Fuck, I don't want to do it." I do it every day. I could probably just not do it one day and just start back up with old soul today. But I just couldn't do it because I felt a responsibility. People, for whatever reason, want to hear it. It's like on the TikToks, it's on the podcast. If you're going to do this, don't do it for the money, don't do it for the fame, do it for the responsibility you now have for the people who've taken time out of their lives to actually listen to you. That's
yeah,
worth more than money, worth more than fame and all that stuff. And if you understand the responsibility, not only do you show up all the time, but you also um, be careful about what you say. You know, at
yeah,
least I'm not careful about what I say, but I think about everything I say and I mean what I say. And if I make a mistake, I'll tell you I made a mistake because I have a responsibility to the people who've given me their time. They don't have to give me money. The fact that they give me their time is valuable to me and reason why I have a responsibility.
and that's the difference between you and Joe Rogan.
Well, there's one other
And
difference. He's making 100 million and I'm not, but that's okay. I'm fine. I'd rather be able to sleep better and be proud of myself as opposed to being wealthy.
you know how you feel responsible for your platform,
Yeah.
and you have never seen any negative thing come out of it.
Yeah.
However, you see the Republicans' platform, they don't feel responsible, but they have seen so much negativity that comes out of it. You know, like when you see Pizzagate, that didn't make them rethink being responsible with their platform. You see someone being taken down by the FBI on his way to go and assassinate Obama. That didn't make them be responsible with their platform.
Right.
You see what your words and your rhetoric can do. It causes January 6th. That don't make you feel like you need to be responsible with your platform. It's like nothing that they do, or they feel like, well, I just said it. I didn't tell them to do it. So I'm not responsible. And
Right.
it's crazy coming from a party who branded themselves on being the party of personal responsibility. They don't feel responsibility for anything that they say. They don't feel responsible for their actions. They don't feel responsible how their words can make impressions on people and can change the course of their lives or get them
Right.
killed, take them away from their family while they're sitting in prison. They don't feel responsible for any of that.
Well,
It's just mind-boggling to me that
when you talk about Donald Trump, the Republican Party, MAGA people, Joe Rogan, other people doing media things, for them, everything is transactional. I'm
yeah,
going to do this in order to get something in return. I'm going to say something crazy so more people listen, so I make more money. I'm going to claim this so I can get voted in November. It's all transactional. And I think we all do things that are transactional. It's just about matter of what's valuable to you. Um, I feel fortunate to be in the position I'm in because I'm retired. I have an income. I'm going to be fine whether I do the podcast or not. I don't
yeah,
have to base everything I do on how many followers do I have and how much money do I make. And I have the interest in telling the truth as best I can.
yeah,
That in itself to me is a responsibility because most people aren't in that position. They got to
yeah,
make money and they got to hustle to make money. And sometimes they'll cut corners or do crazy things. And I don't have to do that. So I thought, you know, I've been given this opportunity to do it. So I should take advantage of it. It's like you with helping all the people you do. It's not transactional for you other than it makes you feel good and you've done some good for some other people. And that's, and I'm not trying to compare me to you because it's not the same thing. It's not even close. But if in your life you can do things for the sake of doing it as opposed to what you get out of it, it's much more rewarding in the end.
Yeah, you know, like they call us like nomads, who are people who, you know, their company may be based in the States, however, they work abroad.
Right.
I was thinking about being nomadic for a while. However, it's like not everybody has the opportunity to where they can work remotely.
Right.
So why would I go to Tahiti or like sit on a beach when I could be like in another state, like actually helping someone or
Right.
doing something good? I'm not mad at those who do that. I'm like, do you boo, enjoy your life? I'm cool with that. But I do think that sometimes we are given, we're a little bit more fortunate in one area. And then it's like you have a responsibility to do good with what you were given.
Right.
And I feel like that sometimes. And it's weird that other people, they don't feel that same responsibility. And it would be different if like, I don't know, if this was like Obama and he just in the White House, everything was running smooth, women have their rights, everything is cool. And then it's like, okay, yeah, you know what, I can go to Tahiti for a little bit and work as a nomad. But then at the same time, we don't live in that time anymore. And
No.
people, you know, they do need help. So I feel like if I can work remotely and go help someone, then that's what I should be doing.
Well,
I
in
do
the,
have to find a balance though,
in
because I've
the,
been slept in my
yeah.
bed in 2 weeks. But I do have to find that balance. But I do think this election, democracy, women's rights, LGBTQ plus rights, all of that stuff is on a ballot. I wouldn't even be comfortable on a vacation right now.
No, no. And the thing is that, um, we're at a moment in time in history when more people need help in this country in either a big way or a small way than almost any time we've ever had because of the destruction and the negativity that the Republicans have done. I mean, the work you're doing with the women who need the reproductive health care and live in states where it's not legal, somebody's got to do that. Somebody's got to take care of these people. And once we get past this election, um, we're all going to have to take a look at what we can do to help to try to bring us back together. And if you want it transactional, we have to do it in order to improve the country and get us on the right track. We can't just say, okay, it's just me. I'm going after what I want. Everybody else can do whatever they want. We're really in a time when a lot of people need help and it's going to take work to do it. That's why, when people say, well, what if Kamala wins? What are you going to talk about after that? Oh, we got a lot of work to do after that. There's going to be trials for Donald Trump. There's going to be digging out of the hole we're in. There's going to be a lot of work to be done even after this election.
You see what happens to certain people when we don't do that?
Yeah.
And I think about, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but JD Vance is like, he is like one of those people that when you see that they don't have a Coach Walz in their life, they don't have someone that they can talk to and be comfortable with being themselves, how they turn that inward and then it turns into something dark and ugly and then they spew it outward.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I really do think that when we ignore people who are struggling, that type of thing happens. And I think that if Republicans and Democrats, if there wasn't certain people that we just ignored, that we wouldn't have MAGA. Like if we would have looked out for rural America more, they wouldn't feel like they're left behind. They
That's a
wouldn't
good
feel,
point.
you know what I mean? Like we just neglected 20, 30% of our population. And they're just over here stewing and brewing, and they're looking for someone to come in and see them and hear them.
Right.
And that's a good thing if I was the one going over there to see them and hear them versus Trump was like, hey, I see you, I hear you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were vulnerable. They felt unheard, they felt unseen, and he gave them a purpose. And I
Right.
think that's how most people that get sucked up into cults, something is missing in their life at that moment. And so they find that camaraderie in the
Yeah.
cult, they find a purpose in that cult, whether it's right or wrong, that gives their kind of like their life some kind of direction to go in. which is unfortunate because when you have somebody like Trump and the Republican Party, they could just come in, take advantage, and feed off of these poor people. I'm having to see that a lot of them, they do know the truth and they just hateful, but there
Yeah.
are other people that's like swept up in that. And that's because they was just ignored for such a long time. When we left that door open for the wrong person to walk in,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, so now we get through this convention, people are going to be riding high. Kamala will likely get a bump in the polls and such. And people keep saying that this is just the honeymoon period. The Republicans love saying this is the honeymoon period. It's going to die off. They're going to know who she really is, and then it'll go back to Trump. I disagree. I think if there's nothing more powerful than momentum, and it takes a lot to stop momentum. And the momentum that Kamala and Tim Walz have right now is
Yeah.
unprecedented. The next thing we have to look forward to in the next, well, less than 3 weeks is Donald Trump's debate with Kamala Harris. Now, he wants to do one first at Fox News on the 4th, but that's not going to happen because there was no deal cut. That was just Donald Trump talking. He wants
Yeah.
to get a safe place first so then he can take a shit on the other ones, but that's not going to allow him to happen. People are wondering whether he'll show up to that debate. And I'm almost to the point to think he doesn't have a choice. Even if he knows he's going to get his ass kicked, he's losing. He's got to pull something out. And if anybody believes Donald Trump is a fucking orator and a genius, it's Donald Trump. So he'll probably walk in there thinking he can win, but it's not going to go well for him. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think there'll be more than one debate because after he gets his ass kicked the first time, he won't want to go back.
Yeah. You know how right wing is saying constantly that this is just the honeymoon period?
Yeah, it's a joke.
I know for a fact they're not talking to us. They know that they are talking to Donald Trump, and they are because that's how they communicate with him, and they are talking to MAGA.
Yeah.
This is their way of telling them, don't worry, don't feel intimidated by the crowds, don't pay attention to this or that. It's just a honeymoon period. It'll be over soon. It's going to be okay. It's almost like parents trying to soothe a child.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about this. We're going to get through it. It's just the honeymoon period. Like they are really like trying to talk to just a select group of people. They're not talking to us when they say that. So when they say the honeymoon period, I don't even pay that any attention because I know they ain't talking to me. They talking to Trump and they talking to MAGA because these are the people that's struggling and are wound up right now. Did you see that woman who had a fit when Fox News showed Kamala Harris's commercial?
No.
Yeah, so there's I'm like, I'm not even on social media and I see this stuff. But so there's what is his name? George Conway.
Yeah.
What he's been doing is he's been playing these anti-psychopath commercials,
Right.
and on Fox News, on the Golf Channel, and like on all these other channels. I'm like on the Golf Channel, like stuff that he knows Trump is gonna watch because he wants to get inside his head. And so Kamala Harris, she has ads on Fox News on the Golf Channel. Like she wants him to see these ads. So anyway, there's a woman who reported herself watching a Kamala Harris ad, and she's like, Fox, why are you playing Kamala Harris's ads? Blah, 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 blah. To me, it's funny because you think that this network is going to pass on a $250,000 ad or however much it costs because you don't want to see it on Fox News.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. This is a business first. They're not even a news. This is entertainment. They've said that in lawsuits. But for me, the funniest part about her saying how horrible Fox News was, even Trump came out with a post saying, we're going to have to win this election without Fox because they plan Kamala's ads and George Conway's ads. But nobody, none of these people, not even Trump, has a problem with the fact that Kamala Harris has an account on Truth Social and she just trolls his butt all day on Truth Social. So if you're not going to ask Donald Trump, hey, why does Kamala Harris have an account on Truth Social and she's showing us videos, her commercials, crowd sizes. She's on his social media page doing that. They'll say nothing, but Fox plays her commercials and y'all losing y'all mind. They refuse to hold this man accountable for anything. Like, I don't get why they have a problem with Fox playing her ads. To me, it's just business.
It is.
If you have a problem with Fox News playing her ads, then you should have a problem with her being on Truth Social and playing her ads over there, snippets of her rallies and stuff. You know what I mean? Like he is just completely. They treat him like an invalid. Like,
Well, and that's how advertising is a mercenary thing, and why I don't know why it surprises anybody that a Democrat would want to put advertising on Fox News. I've had people call me up or text me and say, when you're on YouTube, they'll play a commercial for Donald Trump or some Republican thing. And I say, I don't really have any control over that. I can't pick and choose what's going to be on there. But it's not surprising that they would try to reach the people that disagree with them. I mean, what's the point of advertising to people that agree with you? It doesn't make any sense. So that shit's going to happen. And I know Donald Trump takes it personal. And that's Donald Trump's biggest problem. Everything he takes personal because he's a narcissist. The question
but
is,
he's transactional too. Like you said, he doesn't want to see Kamala Harris on Fox News, but he has no problem with her being on Truth Social because in his mind, maybe that's $1 an hour or whatever he's making off of that.
Right.
So it's just like,
well, Donald Trump's learning a big lesson now because I've said this before. People say, well, what happens if he cheats in 2024? He did it in 2020 and even 2016. You have to understand about Donald Trump. He is a far weaker candidate, a far weaker person in 2024 than he was in 2020. He doesn't have any power. People are stepping away from him. We see Republicans in droves, Republicans for Harris, evangelicals for Harris. He's got people stepping away from him. He's going to make the demands he's always made, but he's a much weaker person. And eventually it's going to look even more pathetic to the people who are around him. We know it's already pathetic, but he's losing ground every day. He's losing support every day. And pretty soon it's going to be like Don Quixote and Pancho Sanja, Pancho tilting it at windmills is what it's going to be like.
You know what's sad about this to me, as far as like, I don't know how women are within the Republican Party, but do you, boo? It's sad to me is that Donald Trump can get some of his best information from the women within the Republican Party, but they continuously silence these women.
Right.
One of the people that I pay attention to the most is who we call Milquetoast. What is her name? She used to be his press secretary.
Gosh. Oh yeah, Grisham.
No, she's on Fox, blonde hair, very attractive. He calls her Milquetoast.
Kelly McEnany.
There you go, Kelly McEnany. And then also another person to look out for is Tommy Lauren. I can't stand that heifer, but
oh no, she's a joke.
I can't stand her, but she can read a room, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing with Kayleigh McEnany, what she was saying is Donald Trump doesn't have to come out and talk about policy. She was saying that because, he doesn't have any. So you have everybody else over here saying, talk about policy, talk about policy. She knows he doesn't have policy. She says what he needs to do is stop the name calling and attack her policy. So don't attack her as the person, attack her policies. You know what I mean? That's all you do is attack her policies, whether it's true or not. You make it look like 8 million people are crossing that border every single day.
Right.
You make it look like it's starving kids named Tiny Tim, in the streets of all of these Democrat-run cities. That's what you need to do. And she knows that the people who follow him, they're not smart enough to know the difference.
Right.
But what does Trump do? He start calling her Milquetoast, all these different names and stuff. All of a sudden, she's not on Fox for a couple of days. And then when she does come back, boom, she right back in line.
Well, and
it's just like, if you would have listened to her, that would have made sense. It would have gave you your out so you don't have to talk about policy. You're not offending as many people as you do when you call her low IQ, when you say you're better than her.
Yeah.
This man is a fool. It's just kind of like, that is a way out for you. It's not going to win you an election, but you're not going to look as bad as you look now.
Right.
And this is somebody with insight that knows his weaknesses. She knows that he's not strong in any of these areas. And so she's giving him something to focus on. And he just cannot take that advice from her. And I think it's because she's a woman. In addition to that, he's sexist and he's narcissistic.
Well,
But I do think it's so sad
well,
that there are people on his team that's smarter than him and he refuses to listen to them.
well, he
I love
refuses to listen to him. And the thing about it is I don't know why it's surprising to people. I mean, he was in a criminal trial where he was convicted 34 times. He
yeah.
wouldn't take direction from his fucking lawyers, and he got convicted. Why is
Yeah.
anybody surprised that he won't listen now? He's just not capable. Mentally, he's not capable to say, you know what, I'm wrong. Maybe I should go this way, because he will refuse to ever admit he's wrong. So he'll constantly do this stupid shit. People will say, well, what if he gets better? What if he starts talking nice? Ain't gonna happen. He's not capable.
Mm-mm. Yeah, right. I have a better chance, seriously, of hearing a fly peeing on cotton before Donald Trump changes his ways at all. He
Yeah,
is one of those criminals that is not going to have any type of reform. He's 78 years old. He's stuck in his ways. This is just him, and this is just who he is.
right,
And it's crazy because it's people keep saying all he has to do is talk about policy, and he don't have none.
right.
It's so mind-boggling to me. And she was the only person that says he don't have to talk about policy. He just have to attack hers. That's all he got to do. And it's like, oh, we need to make her shut up. I have
Right.
absolutely how any woman thrives in that type of environment at her big age with her intelligence and her degrees. And I don't understand how you can just dwindle yourself down.
Well, the problem is he
Is it
speaks
just
for
money?
he speaks on instinct, on reactions. He's emotional. He doesn't have the vocabulary to really fight against specifics because he doesn't know specifics. So
Yeah.
all he will say is Kamala Harris will crash the economy. Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever. Kamala Harris will turn this country into a war zone. That's all he can say. He isn't able to um, come out with specifics because he's not smart enough to know what those specifics are. He can't argue a point if he doesn't understand the point. I will tell you, there are three guarantees in life. Three guarantees in life: death, taxes, and a narcissist, once they're in their spiral, every time they will run themselves into the ground, and they will crash and they will destroy themselves. That is
Yeah.
a guarantee with every narcissist. And Donald Trump is about 10 feet off the ground at this point.
Yeah. And you know what? With him, you can notice it. And I think we talked about this like a couple episodes before, is whatever his charisma was about himself that allowed for him to put people down and then be his charming self and get them swoop back in
Right.
again, has lost that in the middle of him spiraling. And the way that we can see him losing that is evangelicals for Harris, Republicans for Harris. He doesn't have any way of charming them and keeping them where they were.
No. Well, and
Losing his grip on them.
the reason for that is because narcissists, from a distance, they look kind of good. They're kind of polished. They might be good looking. They might be successful. They're kind of funny. And from a distance, they look good. But here's one thing you understand about a narcissist: their family, who see them all the time, they know who they are and they don't like them. The You'll never see them with close friends, because if you get a close friend, they see the cracks, they see the darkness, they see the problems, and they run. And this is where we are with Donald Trump. In 2016, we didn't know anything about him. All we knew, he
Yeah.
was on TV, he was a businessman, allegedly rich and all that stuff, and he'd say shit and you go, oh, I like that guy because he says what he means. But then over the years, we've seen the convictions, the poor behavior, the infantile behavior, the convictions, the corruption that he's involved in. We know too much about him. The old tricks won't work anymore because we know too much about him. We're too close to him. We see the cracks, we see the negativity, and it isn't going to work again. He's blown his wad, so to say, because we know too much now.
Yeah. I think like sometimes when I watch it, it's entertaining. And it's funny, like I'll laugh, like when he was saying, more than 100% of our jobs went to legal immigrants. That type of stuff is funny. But then there are other times when I look at him and I really do pity him because A, I know he's miserable. I
Yeah,
know he's lonely. And it's nothing that he hasn't brought on himself. But
right.
just as a human perspective, I feel some type of way about that. And then I was talking to my daughter and she was saying, if you pay attention to him, his reading is probably at a third, fourth grade level.
Right,
His comprehension is at like a second grade level.
right.
So his reading and comprehension skills is just so low. And so when you see him standing up there trying to stick to the script and read it, he can't because to him, it's just words. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's when he starts to veer off of the script and ramble and all of this other stuff because what he is reading is words. He's not comprehending, he's not retaining information. And it just like imagine reading something that makes absolutely no sense to you. Like if you were to sit down and just start reading in Chinese, it doesn't make sense to you. These are just words, you know what I mean? And so she
Yeah,
said that's part of what's going on with him and his faculties is you can see that he's losing his faculties like every single day. You can see he's deteriorating. And for me, when I see that, especially when she pointed that out, like, oh, he's struggling, it just seems so inhumane how they just prop him up like that. And you
yeah.
can clearly see something's wrong with him.
I will tell you this though. You're a more compassionate person than I am. I look forward to the crash. I look forward to the fiery mess. I look forward to his destruction. Not
Yeah,
because not because I'm vengeful. I am, but not because I'm vengeful, but because it has to happen. For this
yeah,
country to get closure and to be separated from this scourge that's been on us for these 8 years. He needs to crash. It needs to be a fiery mess. It needs to be total destruction for him in order for this country to move on from him. Not only us, the normal people, but the people that have followed him. They need to understand what the problem was. They need to have a reason to separate themselves. Otherwise, we'll have these little factions or these little cells of MAGAs going around still talking about how Donald Trump is great. We need that crash. We need that destruction.
yeah. It's I think like it's hard to watch because I do see the dynamics and I do see Donald Trump Jr. And I know from what he was like from when he was with Aubrey and what she has said about like how he used to cry. He just wanted attention from his father. This
Yeah.
was the only way that he could get it. And I do think that he's on drugs a lot to numb his pain that he's
Yeah.
going through. But it's like at the end of the day, that's still your father.
Yeah.
You just gonna let him crash out like this? You just gonna let them prop this man up like that? But then it's like, what do you expect when they have absolutely no problem with their mother being buried on a golf course and nobody attending to the grave at all? It's just weeds and overgrown. Like the woman is like a hole in the ground. So it's not just him. It's like whatever he touches, he just makes it rotten.
Right.
And unfortunately, he laid his hands on his children and they are just as rotten.
Yeah.
I
They're
couldn't
just as rotten.
imagine I couldn't imagine that. Like, but I don't talk about it. But my mother was on drugs. I grew up with my grandmother. So people just assumed that my parents was on drugs. My
Yeah.
father is not on drugs. He works at the Nevada test site. He's an engineer, makes very good money. He's a smart man. But
Yeah.
when my mother left, he met somebody else and she was just like, hey, I ain't raising nobody else's kids. So if you're going to be a single dad and raise these kids for yourself, I'm out. He
Right.
chose her, left us with our grandmother, right?
You may be smart, but
I
you
don't
didn't
have
make good choices.
I don't have a relationship with him. I
Right.
don't. But at the same time, if I saw him crashing out like that, I would not just sit back on the sidelines and just let him go out like that. I
That's it.
personally couldn't take out with him, but hey, I can put you up in a nice home. I can make sure me and my daughter and your great grandkids come visit you or whatever. But for me, I wouldn't let it go down like that.
Now,
I don't
see,
even know that's
that's
cool.
that's where we're different. I've told you about my father, and he was a narcissist. He was a horrible guy. He did bad things to my mom and to his kids and to the people around him. Um, I hadn't talked to him for 25 years. I knew how he was going to end up. I knew he was going to run out of money. I knew he was going to crash because of his constant pathological lying. And then when he died, I got notification from a police officer called me. He's in a one-bedroom apartment in Duluth, Minnesota, not much furniture. He died alone, and he died alone in his underwear and in a recliner by himself. Now, when the police called me, they were trying to be careful with me because they thought I'd be emotional about it. I didn't feel one bit of emotion because he abandoned us years ago, and I don't
Hmm.
feel any responsibility to this guy. Yeah, it's weird because it's your blood relative, it's your father and stuff, but I didn't feel like I owed him anything because he didn't do anything for his family. You get to a point. See, the thing is with my father, it wasn't that I hated him so bad. I knew the darkness and the clouds he brought. And once I had a
Hmm.
family, I didn't want that shit anywhere near my family. My family was more important than my father. So I wanted to keep him at a distance. And it wasn't a problem because he had no interest in being around his family. So when he died, the cop calls me up and he's thinking I'm going to be upset. And he's trying to tell me real softly. And I said, let me guess. You're calling me because my dad died. He goes, yeah,
Mm.
how did you know? And I go, well, he's 82 years old. He was sick. I haven't seen him in 25 years, and I knew it was coming eventually. He said, well, I'm really sorry. I go, look, I haven't seen him in 25 years. You don't have to coddle me here. Just tell me what I need to do. My brother and I will go out and do it. And it wasn't emotional at all. And maybe I'm a broken person because of that. But when people treat you badly over all these years and all these decades, and then you've gone on and made your own life, why do I need to feel responsibility to them? That's the thing. That's the problem with Donald Jr. and Eric. They probably feel the same way, but they're counting on him to make their living and to be popular and to be known and stuff. They've stayed connected to this guy, and he's just taken them down with him. And I refuse to let that happen.
Would you have felt the same if your father was a public figure and he just had
No.
researchers around him that was just propping him up? Would you just be sitting at home watching him on television, like, you know?
My greatest fear is that my dad got any notoriety because I had the same name, different middle name, but same name. My greatest fear was that he did something crazy or got some notoriety because then it would put the spotlight on me because I had the same name. Um, so, fortunately that didn't happen. But yeah, I don't care what he did for a living. I don't care if he was famous or not famous. You can only treat people badly so long, and there was consequences for that. And his consequences was that he died alone. And honestly, I don't think he cared. I don't think he honestly cared that he died alone.
Like when I think about Trump, like when I do, because I really do sometimes pity him, feel sorry for him. And then, like, if I see him at Mar-a-Lago in the dining room, whatever, and I think to myself, there's like so many people in this room with this man. He's not by himself. You got Secret Service, you got people kissing his butt, his
Yeah.
whole entourage, his whole little crew. But he is the loneliest man
Oh
in that.
yeah.
Like how sad that has to be. And I was asking my daughter about it. She's like, A, you're human. And then she said, I have to remember, because I used to volunteer with Helping Hands of Nevada, and those are all seniors. And she said, I never said this to you, but it's something that you should think before you start feeling sorry for like Trump or people like him. It's like if you come across a senior citizen who is living alone by himself and you have to help him run errands or whatever, or it's what you're volunteering to do. But he has 5 children, and not one of those 5 children are willing to do that. You have to say, he's old now, but you have to remember he was a person before he got old.
Yeah.
So how was he to those children and to the people in his life at the time that he took advantage of to make him end up here in this situation, depending on you to help him?
Yeah.
And I never looked at it like that until I was talking to her about Trump. But to me, it's just that to me it's sad because yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a jerk or a-hole previously,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of like your last years. This gotta suck. I
My,
don't want to be alone like that when I'm 80.
no, nobody does. But I know whenever my wife and I go out to dinner, which we do a lot, and if she sees an old person
Yeah.
eating alone, man or woman, she gets teary-eyed. It just upsets her. And I
Mhm.
said, well, how do you know they're not an asshole? How do you know they aren't a jerk? I mean, personally, I don't mind going out to dinner with myself and just having dinner. It doesn't really bother me. I don't feel bad for myself. Fortunately, it doesn't happen that much, but that bothers her. And you have to understand that these old people might look pitiful now, but they created their own situations. Maybe their kids just ignore them and maybe they deserve attention and pity. You don't know that. But
I mean, I guess they weren't born old, like if
yeah,
you think about Dickie and Scrooge,
yeah,
not everybody is going to get a ghost from the past, present, and future to let you know if you stay on this track, this is what's going to happen. And then
yeah.
I guess to some extent, even if people did get those wake up calls or those ghosts to let them know that they're on the wrong path, you could have somebody like Trump that could get those ghosts and still not change. So
Oh, they
I guess
wouldn't.
there's a way to look at it, but to me, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I do feel bad for him when I see him just.
I get it. I don't. I hope he dies in a fiery crash. That's just me. Um,
It's
uh,
never hard for you to watch him struggle. I mean, he is struggling. Oh my
I
God.
I enjoy it actually because there's got to be some accountability for the horrible things he's done to other people, to this country, to our government. I mean, the certain people just don't deserve uh, pity because of how
You know,
horrible. I mean, would you pity Adolf Hitler?
heck no.
I hope he had
And
a painful death.
yeah, like people who always they have that question. If you had Adolf Hitler as a baby and you knew he was gonna grow up to be, would you harm that baby? And I'm like, I love children, all of it.
Yeah.
But that one you would have to get thrown out of a window. I think that
There would have been
I
a horrible accident that I didn't know anything about.
oops.
Yeah. Whoopsie.
I don't know how that happened. He just slipped.
Now
Okay,
all over
I just
social media,
started
people are going to say, old souls talk about killing babies. What's wrong with her?
when you were saying how bad Trump did to this country, it made me think of something. So you got an email in your last podcast,
Yeah.
and they were asking about Trump and Netanyahu, right?
Yeah.
I'll have to send you the interview. I meant to send it to you and I forgot. But there was a woman who was giving an interview and was saying that behind the scenes, Trump is speaking with Netanyahu and telling him not to make the deal
That wouldn't
with
surprise me at all.
Kamala. Um, and for me, like when I heard you read the email, I was like, I gotta send him this video, but I didn't have a chance to send it then. But she was like on the record talking about that. So
Well,
I'm thinking that it could have been a negotiation made already, but Trump is behind the scenes doing whatever he's doing. Someone, I can't remember which podcast I was watching it on. I can't remember. It was either I think it was Reflect, but what he was saying on the podcast was he thinks that it's possible that Trump is promising Netanyahu, like, hey, if I'm reelected, then you can come here for like asylum or whatever. That's what he was saying. Maybe that could be the deal that's going on. Even though we don't know what Trump is saying, that was his speculation. I wouldn't put that past Trump. However, if I was Netanyahu, just like if I was Putin, I can see how this American election is going right now, and I'm gonna
yeah.
have to get my butt in line. So
Yeah.
For him to let Trump talk him out of a ceasefire is crazy. And then I'm sitting here and I was like in tears watching these poor parents at the DNC tonight, knowing what's going on with Donald Trump behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think as a parent, it took everything. I couldn't have been on that stage because I would have had to call him out right then about him making negotiations behind the scenes. And it's like every single day, every single like hour that passes, women and children are being murdered.
Right.
And Trump is like, I don't care about none of that.
He doesn't. He doesn't care about that.
I need to best my chances of getting in the White House. Like, how evil do you have to be to say something or do something like that when women and children are literally, they're dying. Like, they are literally dying.
Well, he's got a track record. He said COVID was a hoax. 1 million people died. He shot down the bipartisan border bill. So the idea that he's talking to Netanyahu and trying to get him to not sign a ceasefire. I don't think he has to convince Netanyahu to sign a ceasefire because it's a direct trip to jail for him if he ends the war. But Netanyahu's ultimate end is going to be just like Donald Trump, so he should be prepared for that.
How do you deal with, because I'm like a wave of emotions when it comes to this, how do you deal with Merrick Garland, knowing that Trump is having Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, sitting down, taking private dinners? Now, if we are hearing that he's behind the scenes preventing the ceasefire, we know you've heard of it. We know you know what's going on, right?
Right.
How is he not being held to the Logan Act? Him and his sons. But if you want to leave the sons out of it for whatever reason, sometimes I'm just like so like emotional. I don't know if I'm angry or what, because Merrick Garland is letting this happen.
Well, because
how do you deal with those emotions?
Merrick Garland is a pussy ass bitch, and he's worried about looking too political and playing that fucking game. Maybe it all comes to pass after the election, and Donald Trump gets nailed with all kinds of things because there is no more election. But the bottom line is, one of the first things Kamala Harris needs to do when she becomes president, fire Merrick Garland. Get him the fuck out of there. He's not helpful to this country. He's not helpful to the rule of law. He's not a good representative of the judicial system or the DOJ. Fucker needs to go. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He's just not a very strong guy, and he doesn't understand the job. He needs to go.
Do you think that with the Logan Act, because this is the most clear-cut case I've seen, especially with Donald Trump Jr. being the go-between, do you think that he's waiting for the election to end?
Maybe.
He doesn't want to be interfering with the election?
Maybe, but listen, think of this, though. There's a lot of these Logan Act type things. And when's the last time you've ever seen anybody indicted or prosecuted for it? We've got all these stories. And do you think Donald Trump's the first one to do this kind of bullshit? I guarantee you he's not. It's just one of those things they don't pursue.
I can see, honestly, if you had someone with that position and that much power, just doing some underhanded stuff behind the scenes and it being swept under the rug. I honestly believe that happens far more than we know about.
I agree.
The difference is Donald Trump does it in the open.
Yeah.
He is so brazen with it. He has news cameras coming and sitting in as he's breaking bread with this monster over here.
Yeah.
And then when they get ready to have their little private chats, it's like, all right, y'all can go now. We need some our time. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, how are you that brazen and you can get away with it? It's the difference when you're doing your business behind closed doors. But when you're doing it out in the open on national television, you don't think that emboldens MAGA? It's the same reason why Comey can get away with these dumb investigations. Now he's trying to investigate into Tim. It's just kind of like they are emboldened because they know there's no consequences to abusing your power. And who did they learn that from? They learned that from Trump.
The only way we're going to get consequences if we elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz president and vice president and push the issue after the fact. That's it. I mean, between now and November, ain't shit going to happen. Nothing's going to happen other than Donald Trump embarrassing himself and losing this election. All this legal shit, none of it's going to happen until November. It's unfortunate, but that's how the fucking system works, and that's something that needs to be changed. But we can't change it until Kamala's president. So we just got to ride out the last couple of months and hope for the best and do what we can to change shit. It's
You think
it's a bad answer, but that's the answer.
you think Netanyahu will negotiate with Biden and Kamala in good faith, or is he just going to roll with Trump?
Well, I think he'll have to ultimately, consider this. There's one event that's coming up that I think Eric brought up. There's going to be a period of time, a period of what? 20 days. 20 days after the new January 3rd, the new 17 days. January 3rd, the new Congress comes in, and presumably it'll be Democrat run. Okay. Joe Biden, the election will be over. Joe Biden can do virtually anything he wants, and it will hurt him, but not hurt Kamala Harris because she's not president yet. If it goes to that point, I would expect Joe Biden kind of pull rank on the motherfucker and said, listen, this is going to go badly for you. Or somebody is going to take him out because people are dying and upset. A guy like that, whether it be Mussolini or Hitler, they don't last long because too many people are dying. Something's going to happen to Netanyahu. He won't be the leader of that country for very long. Something's going to happen. Either America will force the issue or somebody else will get him.
It's just
It's crazy.
Another level of evil. I don't know what it was when you were talking that made me think about what he's doing behind closed doors with Netanyahu. And it's like that compassion that I was feeling for him. It just went out the window. It's crazy. It just goes up and down. Because to me, it's just, I don't know how more sick you can get than that. And I don't know what's worse, Trump doing it because Trump is Trump.
Yeah.
Or Merrick Garland sitting back and just watching it happen, knowing that him doing that is going to cost more people their lives. So it's kind of like you're choosing Trump over innocent women and children. Like
the unfortunate thing is Donald Trump is swirling the toilet bowl, and we got to wait till the flush is completed before we can do anything. I tell you what, old soul, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. What? Well, kind of, yeah. I think that's accurate. But we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for joining me today. This podcast went better than yesterday's by a long shot, so I appreciate you coming by.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I love being here, and I will be home next week.
All right, and I'll be home this week, so we'll talk again soon. All right. Well, for those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. If you, I hope you have a great day, and of course, we will talk to you again tomorrow.